Would you believe me if I told you that demons are real? God is a devil, and devil fruits are imprisoned souls from the ancient kingdom. And that's just the tip of the iceberg because yeah, it has been a while, but you're in for a truly dark and really twisted theory today. One that will make your skin crawl and one that makes just way too much sense. Because folks, I think I might have just unraveled the dark secret of devil fruits. Now, the core of this theory revolves mainly around the Gorosei, and for very good reason. You see, Saint J. Garcia Saturn here has absolutely changed how we view devils, devil fruits, and in general, the whole understanding of the One Piece world as we know it. In fact, thanks to the truly crazy reveals of Egghead Island and the reverie regarding the Gorosei, it has become very clear that at the very least, these guys have some truly insane and broken powers. And because of all of these devilish reveals, I started to really think about the true nature of the devil in the fruits. You see, as a result of all of these reveals, my head started to turn around again an old video I had made years ago where I discussed what was inside devil fruits. Back then, I had hypothesized that devil fruits might actually be alive in some really odd way, and honestly, I think all of the recent stuff happening have only made this thought a lot more likely. And this all actually takes us back to the beginning of One Piece, because right at the beginning of the story, Shanks and sailors would talk about legends of the sea devil residing in these fruits, and while that was initially presented like folklore, I think it's actually the truth. Because as we've seen time and time again, Shanks doesn't just say things willy-nilly. In fact, just the opposite, he very much repeatedly is showing us that he truly understands how the One Piece work truly works from the inside. And with that said, I think we should at least consider that we might have to take what he says here at face value. And so I want to propose the idea that all the devil fruits have not only just a soul, but literally a real devil sealed inside of them. And the wills of these devils are in constant conflict with the will of their current users. Yes, I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but I do promise it will make a lot of sense when you lay it all out in the open. And to do that, let me now explain a little bit of my reasoning here. It's pretty clear that when someone eats a devil fruit, some of the traits of that fruit actually seep into them. And we can actually see this quite clearly with a few characters like Bartolomeo and Boncle. These two were both relatively kind and good-hearted average people who had a true character shift once they ate their devil fruits. And we've actually been told time and time again that fruits, and specifically zone devil fruits, seem to have a real will of their own. And that all said, it really begs the question, if the devils inside do have a strong will and guide themselves to the person they want to eat the fruit, are they intentionally choosing individuals who have weaker wills? Also that they themselves can overtake these people a lot more easily. I mean, it would explain a lot about, for example, the Impel Down Zone users here who are all fully awakened and yet seem to have fully lost control over their body and their free will. And as a matter of fact, it would also explain why certain awakenings don't seem to have the same effect. Because if the devil inside of the fruit chooses a person who will aligns with them perfectly, we can see that a true awakening can happen as well. Looking at the example of zone fruits again, other than the Impel Down jailers, we can see this perfectly in someone like Lucci with his fruit, or even someone like Luffy, whose will seems to be that of Joy Boy and Nika. Honestly, it may also explain why despite having immense haki, Big Mom's personality still shifted with eating her fruit. Now you might remember that Big Mom ate her fruit, and I guess Mother Caramel in the process, yikes, when she was still a child before her will was fully realized. So there is a real chance that she grew to be her monstrous self because the devil fruit's will was a lot stronger than her. And Big Mom is a great example because we do know for a fact that Lin Lin was an extremely kind and caring kid that at times lost control trying to do good things. However, after consuming Mother Caramel's fruit, she started turning truly evil and took on many of Mother Caramel's actual traits. She started calling herself Big Mom, has the same devilish smile and lipstick, and while Mother Caramel was using orphans for her benefit, Big Mom, well, made her own children to use for hers. But if you need an even better example, the same thing applies for weapons and objects that consume devil fruits as well. Because all of a sudden, these dead, inanimate objects develop true lives, personalities, and even wills of their own, and it would make a lot more sense if the fruit was actually alive. That's because that way it could actually give its life to the object, like this cannon or this sword. And with that in mind, I think it also really nicely explains why Haki is able to fully nullify devil fruit abilities as well. Because if we assume that the powers of the devil fruits are the manifestations of each devil's will, then it makes sense that Haki is the perfect cancellation material here. That's because Haki is the manifestation of the user's will, so in those situations, a Haki user is actively using their willpower to defeat the devil's willpower in turn, thus removing the devil fruit's effects. And again, this all adds up perfectly for zones as well. Since zone users change their physical form, it explains why they don't immediately get defeated by Haki. And that's because you would have to go through the user's Haki on the outside before you could then clash with the devil's will on the inside. In fact, this whole idea of clashing wills with both the user and the devil fruit would actually seem to explain why Luffy can actually sway and shift people's allegiances as well. Bartolomeo and Bonplay here are the best examples again. Both have had their devilish sides truly tamed by the immense willpower that is Luffy. And you might not remember, but Mihawk actually said that this was Luffy's greatest power at Marineford, and it may have actually been a lot more insightful a comment than we all actually realized. Nevertheless though, let's get now back to the initial point I wanted to make. How does all of this tie in with the Gorosei? Well, basically, similarly to the sun god Nika, I do believe that the Gorosei's devil fruits contain such legendary devil figures that they fully end up consuming whoever eats their fruit. Now, you might be familiar with a very popular theory that basically says that the Gorosei might be immortal thanks to the Ope Ope no Mi. But I think that there is another much more logical way that makes way more sense here, because I think that the devils that are inside the Gorosei's fruit's true forms are their awakenings. And with that being said, what I basically mean is that this form here that we see with Saturn of that giant spider demon, that's their real form, and their more human forms are actually different forms that they then shapeshift into. You know, kind of like Chopper and all of his forms. And on top of this, I do believe that the Gorosei's fruits are so powerful that they literally consume whoever poor individual is forced to eat it. And so basically, rather than being immortal beings, they might just be constantly jumping host to host once the body's life ends and the devil fruit is reincarnated. But they always look the same because their fruit contains that true form. But just when you might have thought that it couldn't get any crazier, there's a real possibility that the Gorosei may not even have devil fruits to begin with. Maybe they simply are actual devils that don't use fruits as hosts, they actually use poor humans as hosts instead because the fruits aren't strong enough to contain their actual powers. Either that, or they just are devils who weren't sealed or locked into a devil fruit after all. Now, I hear you, there is something I really need to address that is kind of important here, because Vegapunk says in chapter 1069 that devil fruits came about because of desires to have certain powers. And while I'm not ruling this out entirely, obviously, even he says that it's just a theory, and as a result, he could be missing a few really crucial pieces to the puzzle here. And at any rate, we won't know exactly how much Vegapunk actually knows about the true history of the world in the first place. But regardless, I think it's very safe to assume that he hasn't fully cracked devil fruits from what he's been saying in the story. And that's because he can't recreate all of them perfectly yet, so his understanding is just as much at the same level as ours is right now at this point. But on top of that, I think another really strong point in this theory's corner is biblical allusions that are constantly made in regards to the Gorosei and devil fruits alike. I mean, come on. Pentagrams, the title of saint, devils and gods, the Holy Land, all of these things are really pointing to devils actually existing. And in fact, another huge biblical allusion are in the Tree of Knowledge, the Adam Tree, and the Sunlight Tree Eve. It's obvious that the naming origin of devil fruits literally alludes to the forbidden fruit of knowledge that Eve consumes in the Garden of Eden. So it's clear that there is some sort of big connection between all of these things in the story. Now, of course, I'm not taking full credit for this one. The Hidden Island here has had an insanely good theory on the origin of devil fruits that ties into the Sunlight Tree Eve, the Green Line, and a whole bunch of other stuff that you should check out after this one, and some of his finding definitely reinforce this very idea. But here is where things actually get really interesting, because the fruits, of course, have to grow from somewhere. And where do fruits grow? Yeah, you see the logic here now? They grow on trees, obviously. So where better than a tree in the Holy Land that stretches into the depths of the sea? And you know, could this tree just be tainted by the sea devil's influence? Well, possibly, but I think that there's actually a way better and smoother explanation here. We do know, thanks to the Gorosei, that there was once a great cleansing that actually took place in the One Piece world before. And it's because of this great cleansing that the Void Century is actually such a mystery. Now, while it's implied that this may have been a great flood that buried most of the ancient kingdom and the globe underwater, I think that there is actually a lot more to this. Because think about it, if this great cleansing was simply just a flood, then there would still have been people and records to explain that event. I mean, for one, the fishmen wouldn't have been impacted at all by it. To be honest, the Arc Noah kind of discredits this, and that's because the fishmen still don't know for certain its origins. And I mean, sure, time does distort the facts and the truth. What they do know is that it's a majorly important ship for later on, and I find it kind of hard to believe that they just avoided the great cleansing and suddenly just forgot about that it ever happened. And that's of course not even including the fact that we do know from Wano that the ancient Wano citizens just moved up their mountainside, so that they clearly could not have had any type of big void in written and spoken history. That's because of course some people needed to survive that great cleansing. However, if we consider that this great cleansing maybe wasn't across the entire globe like we all seem to think, and was more of a targeted local attack, some of these holes start to fill up quite quickly. And so with that in mind, what if all of the devilish citizens of the ancient kingdom were actually converted into fruits, or better yet, formed into the Sunlight Tree Eve, and thus the fruits that it bears are the wills or literally the reincarnated forms of those sealed inside of it. And yes, I hear you again, Manu, you just said it's devils in those fruits, now you're saying it's ancient kingdom citizens? Can you please make up your mind with one of those crazy theories? To which I say, wait, what if they are both true? That's right. I think that the true devilish history of the devil fruits lies in the fact that the ancient kingdom was a kingdom of devils that was wiped out and thus turned into the devil fruits. And in fact, this isn't a completely new idea. A very popular fan theory is that the will of D is actually the will of the devils, and it's definitely a front-running contender here. On top of that, it's very obvious that Joy Boy and the ancient kingdom are closely connected, and we also have learned that Imu and the Gorosei, as well as the 20 kingdoms, betrayed the ancient kingdom and turned on them to take over and create the world as we know it. And so what if that big betrayal was Imu and the Gorosei betraying the ancient kingdom? Well, because they were part of it as its citizens. Meaning that they literally turned on the ancient devil kingdom to overthrow them from the inside. Also that they could put the human kingdoms in charge instead, with them of course overseeing everything else. I do want to remind you that Imu reversed is Umi, which is the Japanese word for the sea. As in, Imu could be the sea devil that the humans made a deal with to eliminate Joy Boy and his kingdom of devils. And I mean, after all, if you make a deal with the devil, you better expect it to go south at some point. So maybe the repercussions were Imu taking full control over the humans after their only rival, the sun god, was fully overthrown. But also, let's not forget that it's been shown time and time again in One Piece that devils and angels have kind of morally flipped roles here. It's pretty clear throughout One Piece that most gods and angels are seen as the bad guys, whereas the devils are the actual good ones. And this actually isn't only One Piece, it's pretty common in manga and anime in general. I mean, Black Clover, Attack on Titan, and Naruto are just a few of many shows that have made devils and demons out to be pretty good guys is in the end if you actually think about it. And so with that in mind, I don't think it's all too crazy to think that Joy Boy may have been the ruler or hero of the Devil Kingdom. And if Imu and the Gorosei made a backdoor deal in order to betray Joy Boy and overthrow the Ancient Kingdom, maybe the Great Cleansing was supposed to kill all other devils except them. Which then again would explain why Imu with their sea devil powers ended up flooding the world. Now, while this all sounds really good so far, one big hole in this logic is, why have devil fruits to begin with? Why not just kill the devils straight up? Why turn them into fruits? Well, I propose that maybe the creation of devil fruits just wasn't part of the plan. Listen to this. It's basically clear that Imu has some sort of beef with Nefertari di Lily. We know that Imu thinks that Lily made a grave mistake, which was shown in their conversation with Cobra. So what if Lily's big mistake is her creating devil fruits to begin with? Essentially making Lily the Eve to the devil Joy Boy. In other words, if Lily was somehow able to save the devils last minute by converting them into a tree, devil fruits would simply be the reincarnations of all of their wills in the new era. And this would actually make sure that one day her and Joy Boy would return to save things and bring back the peace of the Ancient Kingdom. And honestly, it shouldn't be all that shocking that the Eve tree would be unbelievably important here. I mean, I've said it in many past videos, trees, weirdly enough, are incredibly important in One Piece. We've got the Sunlight Tree Eve, the Whale Tree on Zou, the Great Trees of Wano, and the Atom Tree, which I actually have proposed may be on Laugh Tale in the past. But at the rate the manga is going, it is most likely the tree on Elbaf. And honestly, the Atom Tree might very well also be the tree that the devils were sealed in. I mean, if Shanks clearly knows things about the true history of the world, his protection and dedication to the Island of the Giants would make a lot more sense than it already does. Plus, it would make way more sense that devil fruits escaped into the world that way. On top of all this, we know for sure that all the Giants recognize Luffy as the sun god Nika, so if Nika, Joy Boy, and Luffy all share the same will, it's no wonder the Giants and their giant tree could all be connected. Of course, this is also assuming that Nika and Joy Boy aren't actually the exact same character. But if that's the case, maybe everything I've said so far is true and instead it's Nika, Imu, and Lily that are all connected instead. And I think this would basically just make Joy Boy a sort of separating piece in the middle, connecting everything. Also on the topic of trees, let me remind you of the sacred trees on Jaya and also in Wano that are said to hold the souls and wills of their ancestors. So you got that as well. And needless to say, it's become pretty clear to me that somehow the Gorosei and their devil forms are entirely connected to the origins of devil fruits and their true nature. And whether or not real devils were sealed in those fruits or the poor demon citizens of the ancient kingdoms were saved by their creation, devil fruits are going to be a key element to solving the true history of the One Piece worlds. But until we know for certain about devil fruits' true origin, all we can do is explore what they are really capable of. So while we ponder the true history of these truly devilish plants, check out this video to really see the powers that these devil fruits have. And if you had fun with this one, please like, share, subscribe, and maybe even share the video so I can keep bringing you crazy theories and other One Piece content every single week. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.